Hey, Launch family, we will get to today's episode in under a minute, but first, I wanted to say a huge thank you from Jeff and I to you for listening, sharing, commenting, and reviewing the show. We weren't sure about rebooting this podcast in this format, but it is clear you're loving it, so we're going to keep going and bringing you more great stuff. And we have a gift for you. Just to show our appreciation, I want you to go check out daretolaunchshow.com/AI. And there you're going to find something called our AI Playbook. This is your ultimate guide to unleashing the power of AI in your business, something we have talked about on the show. It's a proven collection of ChatGPT shortcuts, strategies, prompts, and they're really designed to help you identify and connect with your ideal client. Build an email list, create really powerful offers, and really just get you from your idea phase to your launch faster and easier than ever before. So go to daretolaunchshow.com/AI and pick up your own AI playbook absolutely free. Now here's today's Dare to Launch.
I think this is going to be a different conversation than I usually have. I know we're going to talk about tapping, but we're also going to talk launches and summits and things that I never get to talk about. Just about a month ago, we wrapped our 16th annual Tapping World Summit. That's what we're banking on. The whole movie's predicated on this thing actually working with real people. Give them the advice, like, gotta focus on the content, gotta deliver every minute. We don't let people pitch anything. There's not a doctor that will argue with stress plays a role in healing of everything. Doesn't matter what. So we have our issue that we're working on. We have our number, and now we'll do some tapping. Yeah, I beyond blessed every single day.
Hello, Launch family. So happy to have you tuning into today's episode. My name is Chris, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Jeff Walker.
Hey, folks.
And today we have a very special guest for you. He is a New York Times best-selling author of The Tapping Solution and co-founder of the app, The Tapping Solution, also named that. Nick Ortner, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, Chris, Jeff, so happy to be with you today. I think this is going to be a different conversation than I usually have. I know we're going to talk about tapping, but we're also going to talk launches and summits and things that I never get to talk about. So I'm excited.
Super happy to have you here, Nick. I don't know how long we've known each other, but it's been a very long time. And what was it, when we were in New York a few months ago? Yeah. And we were just, we were talking about all things business. And some of the things we're talking about was just some of the crazy stuff we've seen and done, and how you've been central in some of the biggest developments and movements online. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Well, maybe we could, just for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with you, Nick, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do, and then we can get into some of the logistics of the business side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned the tapping solution. It's called the tapping solution. This technique, EFT, or tapping, because we literally physically tap on these endpoints of meridians of our body. And what the latest research shows is that when we do that while focused on the stress, the anxiety, the overwhelm, or just whatever's going on in our lives, we send a calming signal to the amygdala in the brain, the fight or flight response center. So it's a calming mechanism that works on a whole variety of things. I first discovered it back in 2003. I was at a Tony Robbins event as a participant. I had been to a couple. Actually, I should have kept this out because I was digging through stuff the other day and I found some of my badges from 2003. And I found a picture with Tony from 2003 at like a Life Mastery event. Like, our group won the thing, so we got a picture with Tony. And my head is half covered, like just to the right of his. And, I actually sent that badge and picture to Tony yesterday. This is show here it is 20 years later. We'll get to that part of the story later. But, I saw him doing a lot of little demonstration, did the tapping, and just felt something in my body. And it was like, oh, whoa, there's something happening here, right? It's like, it's weird, it's strange, but I feel different right now. And, right around, 2003, so I spent the next couple of years just using it with friends and family. The running joke at the time was, don't say anything is wrong around Nick because he's just going to make you tap on it. I was like, hey, your shoulder hurts. Let's see. This, let's see. You're anxious. Let's see. And at the time I was in real estate. I was buying, fixing up houses and selling them with my dad and brother. Like, I never thought that there'd be a career in this. I mean, I think now in this day and age, like with creators and influencers and, all of those things, it's like obvious to do that. But, going back to 2003, if you're passionate about something, like what do you do with it? Like an online course, like what are you actually going to do? I was coaching some people. I would actually coach people that I would meet at Tony Robbins events and be like, hey, yeah, and I did it for free. It was just like passionate about the results. And then in 2007, I had this inspiration to make a documentary film about the technique. The inspiration was right around that time. The Secret was it. It was big. It was huge. And, my simple, 29-year-old brain was like, hey, there's some people in The Secret who actually teach tapping, like Jack Canfield and Joe Vitale. And it's like, these experts are into tapping. They're in The Secret. What if I get them and do a movie about this? Can I make the kind of money that the people who made The Secret made, right? That was like, that naive young brain. But I was passionate. I was into it. I bought $40,000 worth of camera equipment on credit cards and credit lines. I enlisted my little sister, Jessica, and one of my best friends from high school, Nick Polizzi, and the three of us set off on this journey to make this film with no experience. I mean, I'm saying like we would unpack boxes when we got all this equipment and be like, I think this is a light. Like, does this look like a light to you? No idea what we were doing. YouTube videos. We would just like watch videos to learn how to set up shots. If I watch the movie now, I can point to where we knew how to light a scene and where we didn't know how to light a scene, right? It was just like, talk about clueless kids with a passion, just figuring it out, every step of the way. Somehow we got this movie done, and, I'm skipping through a lot of parts and we can dive into the different details, but, not to bore the listeners, we got the movie done. We released it in 2008, and I sold DVDs for $19.95, for the next year, trying to claw my way back to profitability. I think I'd spent somewhere between $120,000 to $150,000 to make the movie, which isn't much when it comes to a movie, but it sure is a heck of a lot when it's on your credit cards and you're selling DVDs for $19.95, right? Like,
that's a lot of DVDs, yeah.
That's a lot of DVDs. No upsells, no anything. In 2009, I did our first Tapping World Summit, and I had actually done a summit before, and again, a different conversation we'll branch off into, but I did this summit, and first time we launched it, we did about $450,000 in sales, which was more money than I had ever seen in my life. Paid off the rest of the debt, and that set us up to this trajectory of like, okay, we can do something here. Like, there's a model that works. Certainly was a lot easier when we were selling something for $97 for digital and $197 for the physical, when we could pay affiliates. So we did that summit, and just about a month ago, we wrapped our 16th annual Tapping World Summit. So 16 times we've done it. And in the intervening years, wrote a book that was a New York Times bestseller, launched a bunch of other courses, and then launched this app that you mentioned about 5 years ago. So that is the condensed version of this, 16-year journey. And we can break into, whatever we want to for the details of how and why and what works and what didn't work.
I'm just curious, like, why a movie as your first step? Like it's sort of a bold step to say, I'm going to do a movie instead of, say, just, I don't know, write a book or run like you said, run a course or do something like that.
Especially in 2007, these days there's so much more knowledge about, we're all walking around with cameras. Our phones are good enough to shoot film on. Back then, it was so much harder.
So much harder. And again, just $40,000 to get in the door with the equipment. The cases we would carry around, traveling with it was brutal. So I think, a couple things there. One, like I said, The Secret was like it. So it was just like, wow, look at this. I also had seen so many incredible results that I wanted to show them. Like, that was important to me, not just to talk about it, write about it. I wasn't the expert at the time, so I didn't feel personally confident in writing a book. Like, me writing a book would have been like, well, who are you? Not that it couldn't do it, but it's just not where I was personally. But I'm like, I know the people out there. I can put this together. And even, through the course of making the film, we filmed a bunch of experts, and one led to another. And we had a great cast of experts talking about tapping and all the different aspects of it. but it felt like it was missing something. You know, The Secret had the experts, but they also had very expensive dramatized shots of soldiers running through the night, and we didn't have any budget for that. The way we solved that was, hey, we want to show real people. We found 10 people from around the country. You know, we put out through these different experts for applications, and we got all these applications, and we found these people who wanted to come to this 4-day event where we were going to film them before, during, and after. And with these 10 people, like John, who was a Vietnam veteran, you know, you see in the movie that we fly to his house in Minneapolis, and he's had chronic back pain for 30 years, and you see him get up and groan, and all his medical records laid out on the table, all the drugs, the surgery, like the million things he had tried. And again, when I look back on it, I'm like, you are insane to fly to Minneapolis, someone you've never known, get him on camera with 30 years of chronic back pain, then fly them to Connecticut for this event we're doing, and hope that it would work, right? Like, because that's what we're banking on. The whole movie's predicated on this thing actually working with real people. Sure enough, you see a clip. John wakes up the second morning of the event, and he's like, that's the first time I've been pain-free in 30 years. You know, so it's like, but I think I was coming in with the energy and the experience of a couple of years working with people and seeing these results, saying, we can do this. So that's why the movie. That's why we wanted to show it. Be like, this is proof of what's happening.
Yeah, you can prove the transformation in the film. That's powerful. When you made the movie, right, then you had to sell the DVD. Like, was there kind of a marketing plan behind this? Like, oh, we're just going to sell them this way. We're going to go to this summit and it's all going to work out. Like, The Secret was just sort of like, it's going to work out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just keep using what I learned in The Secret and, you know, figuring it out along the way. You know, I had decent marketing chops. I ran a web consulting and marketing business for a couple years right out of college. I graduated from college, went to work at a bank in like their corporate department for a couple months. Very quickly found out that I was not cut out for that kind of life. I remember one day going to my supervisor and being like, hey, I have nothing to do here. And she was like, well, the first year is really just observing, you know? And I'm like, this is not going to work for me. My dad had the entrepreneurial spirit. He had a business that he ran, just one-man business, importing and exporting aircraft equipment from Argentina. So I'm like, hey, let me build you a website. So that's probably 2000, where I build a website with Dreamweaver, doing pay-per-click at the time. You know, 2000 pay-per-click, no one knows anything, right? And it's so cheap that I end up getting him so much traffic and business that I think it ended up being a negative in the long run, because he was just inundated with requests and didn't have the ability to, you know, we weren't screening enough or to handle it. So it was just a lot of junk in there. But man, could you get some easy, cheap traffic at that time? I went to my local driving range where I had worked in high school, and not only said, you know, can I build you a website, but also, can I have a job? Because I need to make some money on the weekends, because here I am living at home and working from my parents' basement. So I built them a website. I started the golf tip of the day to build an email newsletter for them. All right. This is, again, 2000, an email newsletter for a driving range in 2000 was absolutely unheard of. And it was great. They were like, oh my gosh, we're getting all this business because we're reminding people that we exist with a little golf tip and a joke. And that's me just building the newsletter and typing it up, writing the content, sending it out. So coming into the sale of the movie, I have enough understanding of a sales page, of websites, of an email list that I'm able to at least pull that side of it off. And there was a really nice, robust existing community of people who were into tapping, who talked about it. So they were all delighted about the movie and happy to purchase it and happy to share it with friends, you know, enough to get that base covered until the next level came up.
And then, so 2008 to 2000, you released the film in 2008.
Yep.
And it gives you positioning. I'm sure some type of a list build. It's not a huge money maker because you're selling DVDs and you've spent a ton of money. But then all of a sudden you hit a home run in 2009, that transition into the summit. I'd like to hear about that, you know, where that came from and how it worked. Yeah.
So the summit, you know, I had actually done a summit with one of my good friends from high school, Kevin Gianni, in 2006 or 7. I think it was before I started the movie. So maybe 2006. we had, again, these are like these little side things you do. I'm still doing the real estate stuff, but we get into, hey, can we build something on the web? Can we create something? And at the time, he was doing a fitness thing. Like he had like Renegade Health, which is like a fitness thing, trying to do YouTube videos and build a brand there. And I'm doing some little things on the side. And what was really hot then were these, I forget what they were even called. They were like teleclasses. They were audio. First off, they were audio, right? Audio only, obviously. And they would be like twice a week. So someone would just say, hey, we're doing this 3-month thing twice a week. We're bringing experts on. We're going to talk about a topic, and then we're going to sell their program at the end, right? That was like the model. And we said, well, why don't we do that in the health space, right? So we're like looking and, we're talking to people about the model, going to different internet marketing seminars, going to a Dan Kennedy seminar, going to a Jay Abraham seminar, like the different things that are swirling then. And the model at the time was tough for us for a couple reasons. One, people were like, well, yeah, you collect some money up front, but then it's 3 months and then you got to wait till the end of the time before you collect everything because there's a lot of refunds and this, that, and the other. And we said, man, 3 months. I mean, we are as broke as can be. So we're like, we don't want to wait 3 months. So we're like, well, instead of having them twice a week, why don't we do it 3 times a week? It was just like, great. That brings you down to 2 months or whatever it was. And then we just kept, no joke. Like the reason it came to the format it was us just condensing the time period because we wanted to be able to collect that money earlier, So we ended up being like, well, okay, so what if we do it every day? Oh, what if we do twice a day? That was the time frame. Like we had 20 sessions that we then condensed 2 per day over 10 days. That was the impetus behind the financial reason to do it. The building of the actual thing, what I struggled with is it felt to me as a consumer, I would listen to these calls and I would get just enough to learn a thing or two, but hey, all the meat was really in the $9.97 course, or whatever the thing was. Like, and every single call sold something, like every single call. And so I said to myself, like, what if we didn't do that? They would also sell the whole series, but they wouldn't sell that much of it because the series wasn't that great, right? It was just like, who wants to buy 20 sales pitches? So I was like, well, what if we actually deliver content during that time period? And what if, because what I thought to myself, if someone came to a weekend seminar, it was like, you pay and then you get the content. Yeah, as we all know from being at different real estate seminars or even internet marketing seminars, there are upsells for the bigger program and all that stuff. But I was just personally not a fan and wanted to be like, what if we actually delivered the content? And that was it. Like, this is the thing. I think that little shift in being like, the product is the thing is what made it successful. And it certainly, the first Fountain of Youth World Summit was an absolute failure. I think we might have made $18,000 on it. We had all these different experts. We had people with email lists for 400,000 people. And I remember the night I thought I was going to be rich because someone was going to, with 400,000 people, was going to mail for the summit. And, it converted terribly. And we might have made $1,200 from that send. But at least it built that basis. And, the summit name I just came up with because it was like, oh, like they have these like summit places. Again, like, for the event. And then we're like, well, what if it's a world summit? Give it an extra, thing. So I had the foundation and again, a failure really with the Fountain of Youth World Summit is what it was called. But then when it came to the Tapping World Summit, I was like, you know what? There might be something here. The experts are here. The community's here. Like I knew who it would be. I knew that they had email lists. I knew they could send out about it. I knew if I paid them 50%, it was worth their time. We really almost helped monetize an existing community that had a demand for more information, but it wasn't packaged well enough. And I think that's why that first summit worked so well. And, a lot of the credit goes to my sister, Jessica, who did those first interviews and the last ones in the 16th annual summit, because she is a great interviewer and we just laser focused on the content. A lot of times, the summits, people just treat them as like radio interviews or even podcasts. Like back then it was like radio interviews. Now it would be like podcasts. And we took and continue to take a different approach where we meet with the experts beforehand. We work on the outline, like really tight. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We took it as seriously as you would as if you had a live event and you were presenting, It's like, you wouldn't have a live event with someone and present and just talk about whatever came up the way, some of these other things happen. So I think the focus on the user experience, and especially, if you think about the model is you get to listen to all of this for free. So if I don't deliver in every single one of those calls, I'm never getting that purchase. Like, why would I? It's a lot easier to sell something when you don't give it away for free and you just could have a great copy page and say this and say that about everything that will change if people do this. But when you reveal yourself in the product, you're like, here it is. This is what you're going to get. Then you really have to deliver on the content. And, people have asked me about summits. They saw the success. They would say, okay, I want to do it for this. And I would give them the advice, like, got to focus on the content, got to deliver every minute. We don't let people pitch anything. We don't spend a lot of time with their backstory unless it's really relevant. Because that's what I kept finding too in the years since. It's like, oh, the Gut Health World Summit. I'm like, give me the information. And next thing I know, the first 20 minutes of every single call is the story about how they got into it and why it changed their life. And maybe that's okay once, but when I got 20 of these and I want them as information, I don't need that 20-minute story. Like, give me the thing. So we really just focused on that and continue to focus on that, which is why we have the longevity of, we're tired, but we're doing it 16 years later, and we do new content every single year. Like, we just start fresh and we say, what are we covering this year? And how are we going to cover it? And how do we make this better? Because we're so committed to, the concept and for the people that listen for free. Clearly this is a mission-based business. Like, we want to get this to people out in the world, but if someone can't afford it, which plenty of people cannot afford it, no matter how good it is, I don't want to waste an hour of their time by going, okay, here's one little nugget, but now you got to go buy the rest of this. I want the experience to be, if you listen in, if you take the time out of your day, this is going to transform your life. And we've seen that along the way. We get some stories. Remember 5 years ago, it was like, 5 women in Ecuador who would like get together to listen together at night. And like, they couldn't afford it. Exchange rates and like all that stuff, it was just impossible. But they listened for free. They learned together, and it was like, fulfilled the mission of what we're doing while still creating a sustainable business model.
I just, as you were explaining, thanks for that history, because there's a lot of that I did not know. And it strikes me that I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, what's it? They don't, when we say summit, they don't get it. And the fact is, this has become, it's a model that has been very successful, and it's been used in literally every market and niche I can think of. I can think of 2 people in my mastermind that have built their business around this and put hundreds of thousands of people through these summits. But you literally invented it, which is crazy. And you invented it. Like, when I think of me with Product Launch Formula, I invented it out of necessity, and you're the same. You're like, we can't wait 2 months to get the money.
Yeah. We need it now. No, totally.
What is it like when you look around and see just how big that model has become? How does that feel? What do you think?
I think it's great when they're done properly, right? So I don't think it's great when people miss those elements that I've talked about, because I just don't think it's great for the user experience, and it hurts every summit when people miss those parts. So like, I think you sort of ask, like, what is a summit, right? Like, what is the model? Varying lengths, varying amounts of speakers. Sometimes they'll do summits with 50 people or 100 people. My challenge with that is like, it always been my intention. It doesn't mean everyone has to follow, but for us personally, that if people really wanted to, they could listen to the majority of it. Even if it meant like they were staying up late or getting up early or listening on the way to work. Like, if you want to experience this for free because you don't have the financial resources to get this information into your life, great. It's like a library. It's a public library, right? Like, we don't want to limit the access to people who can't do it. So our model happens to be 10 days, just for whatever reason, where we started 2 presentations a day. We've since added like a tapping meditation that you can do if you choose, and like different things like that. It runs for free. And then if you want to upgrade, it's, varying price points, but really Now we're digital only because, nobody wants CDs anymore. I have all the binders up there. I mean, maybe I'll even grab the 2009 binder so you can see it. You want to see it?
Yeah.
All right. So here you go. So if you're listening on Spotify, not video, you're going to have to, really see, and you can see some of the wear and tear of the plastic here, right? So this is proving that we did it in 2009. Here's your binder with a workbook that we do, and here are your little CDs, right? So this I think we used to sell and ship for, $197 when we were shipping stuff. And affiliates, we pay them 50%, right? Like most other things, and people sign up for free. So they send an email, an affiliate sends an email and says, hey, this event's coming on, sign up for free. And people can go through the event and they can purchase if they choose to. We throw in bonuses and, other things for people that want to upgrade, but the experience itself, is free for a lot of people. And like I said, and the content is, through and through just so valuable in what people listen to.
So I'm curious because I know we've kind of answered a little bit about Summit, but a lot of our people are newer to just even digital marketing. They've never really launched anything or things like that. And our listeners may still be a little confused even on somewhat of the model, but you're essentially bringing in a number of different experts, correct, to actually come and speak or to, share their wisdom. And a summit, can it be like 1 day? Can it be 10 days? Like you do 10 days. It could be like, it sounds like it could be any number of lengths.
Yeah, you could do whatever you want, right? You could do a 30-day summit. You could do it a 1 day. Here we go. There's 50 presentations available. They're all free right now. Find what you want. The basis of the model itself, it worked for us initially. It's broken down a little bit, I think, because so many people are doing it, is the expert that you have on there emails their list. And oftentimes we had to have requirements like, hey, if you're going to be in this summit, part of the requirement is that you email your list twice so they get exposure, and it builds our list and it builds their exposure. When it's done purely as a list grab, right? When it's just like, if I get 1,000 experts together, right, and they all email the list, then I'll have the biggest list that's ever happened. That falls apart really quickly. When people try to build it without, a specific direction, like what is this for? Ours is obvious. Like it's the Tapping World Summit. You're going to learn all these things. The first one we ever did, the Fountain of Youth World Summit, was in the wrong direction. It was just general. And people would come to me and be like, how about, your best life yet summit? And it was like this topic and that topic and all these experts, but there was no through line. And like unlikely you would go to a live event that was just like all these different things without a through line to it. I think the ones that are more successful, like I mentioned, like a gut health summit, like, okay, someone who knows they have a problem with gut health, they want to improve it. I'm the world's 20th best experts on gut health. And again, is there a through line? So I don't want expert number 3 to be telling me the same thing as expert number 7, because I took the time to listen to 3 and now I'm listening to 7 and they're saying all the same things. Like, what's the point of this? So building it as an educational product is so critical to the model.
I've seen a lot of summits done that were just a pure list grab. And what we mean by that is that if you say, I'm going to feature 10 speakers and you require all of them to mail into the summit, they're basically mailing into your list. And it's a great way. I've seen people come into markets who are brand new to a market and they're just really good at being charismatic in person with people and getting the speakers to agree to come and agree to mail. And for those folks, it can be a great way to get a list started. But what I hear loud and clear from you, Nick, is just how much you curate the entire process and curate really the product and treating it like you're creating a product, not just like you're doing a bunch of interviews.
100%. It's what is this product that you're creating? Because if it's a list of interviews, like it's not a product. It's just a bunch of interviews.
Yeah. And I imagine like it sounds like even year to year, you're changing the focus. It's always going to be about tapping, but the focus can change. I would think that, past years are still viable products, or at least portions of them are still viable products.
They are. We've never really been able to sell them again, and might be a function of just like the 14th summit, the 15th summit, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I look back, I don't know if I would have done it differently, but maybe, like, we did one called the Pain Relief World Summit because it was all about tapping and pain relief, like I told you John's story. And that is one that we're able to sell again, because if you want to learn about tapping and pain relief, you know, you could sell again. So potentially we could have done them in niches with tapping, and then we would have had some more longevity to them. Like, I don't know if I made the right decision with it being, you know, so general and broad, but we've really struggled to figure out, like, is this all the same people, the new people? Like, yes, we have repeat customers, and part of the reason why we keep doing it is because our repeat customers are such fans, and they like look forward to it every year, and they're just all in, either free or paid, that we just can't bring ourselves to like stop. You know, it's like these people have been with us through and through, and yeah, we just keep going. Maybe at 20 I'll stop. I don't know.
I think the two of us, you and I, are so similar in so many ways, because, you know, what you just talked about, like not wanting to abandon your audience. And I have that so present in me all the time. Yeah. And it's funny that, and the way you created this out of necessity, and I created PLF out of this, and you've got a lot of family in your business. I've got a lot of family. There's so many similarities between us. Now you went summit. It's doing great. Great business. You're helping a lot of people. You've got amazing success stories. And then you decide to do an app.
Yeah.
And I know that has gotten, that has become a very big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if there's a through line to everything that I do, and then Alex and Jess, my siblings, do, everything we do together is just figuring it out as we go along. That was certainly the case with an app. I'd wanted to do an app for a couple years before we started it, because it just seemed like the obvious thing. But even just finding the person to build it is like the hardest part. We found, we decided to do it. We found a firm in Brooklyn that we really liked. I enlisted Kelly, who was our head of HR at the time, and we just had a great relationship. We've known each other for a long time. And, first I tasked her with like finding the right firm, and she was the go-to. And next thing you know, she blinks and she's like the product manager for the app, and just like doing it day in and day out. She's spectacular at it. We'd probably have the app. It certainly wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't be as bug-free. I've referred other people in the industry to this firm, and I always tell them, I'm like, you need, no matter what developer you work with, like, it's going to come back broken and wrong and not what you want and this, that, and the other. You need someone who is just so detail oriented and ready to just like swipe and click and test over and over again to get it right, and, really track what's what. So yeah, it was certainly a learning curve with just, I think some of this, Jeff, with like software development, right? It's just like this whole other world where my marketing chops aren't very helpful there, It's like you need someone who just knows what they're doing there. So we launched the app in 2018, got off to, a solid start with, again, our existing customer base, and, has grown nicely since then. We've been running Facebook ads for a couple of years that have worked well, up and down, like I think anyone's Facebook ads experience is. It's a very different business from what we've done traditionally, in that oftentimes when running ads, we're like, can we break even in year 1? Can we break even in month 18? And those are not financial decisions that I had made in the past. But the app has a potential that other things don't, right? The potential for word of mouth. Like right now, we happen to not be running ads. We paused them for a while because we want to get an organic baseline, but we have a baseline. People are downloading it every single day, organic, because we're not driving any traffic to it or from our email list, and because it's out in the world. And that is something special about an app. We have a membership club called the Tapping Insiders Club that we've had for a decade now. Like, we did memberships, before they were the hottest things ever. But there's not strong virality to a monthly membership club in the way that there is in an app, certainly within communities. So like, I'm sure, like a PLF membership is going to have strong virality from people in the industry talking to each other. But when you go out to the whole world, right, and it's like quote unquote normal people use the app, it's like, it's so available and accessible. And, before we started recording, Jeff, you were talking about your use of the app. Like, there's no way you're signing into my monthly membership club to do this. It's because it's on your phone, it's available, it's easy to use, that you're able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want to tell that story of my use of the app, and 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just, it keeps growing really nicely. I go back and forth as a human in terms of meaning like what I want from my life and what I'm willing to do, because there isn't a train that you can get on. We decided a couple years ago not to get on the investor train. It's self-funded. We have one investor, Tony Robbins. He has 2% of the app. He donates that to Feeding America. He attached his name to it. He's got some tapping meditations in the app. Again, back to that full circle. I learned it from Tony. We became friends through some work that I did in Sandy Hook that he saw and came to visit with, and loves what we're doing. So, he's attached to it. But besides that, no investors. And I came really close to, because, when something's growing and it's like a thing and there's multiples and like, it's so easy to raise money and, okay, I guess this is what we do. And then we invest and we scale. And, I knew it then. I knew it even more now that is not me. Like I was going to be a very unhappy human being if I had investors to report to, right? That if I had to like tell people about Q4 results, like, and care beyond what I wanted to do, is just not who I am, but that's always mixed with my desire to scale, to reach more people, right? So I think I'm finding my way to like, okay, how do we do this in a way that serves us, who we are, and yes, we can still create great impact.
And I just wanted to say that the app is called the Tapping Solution, that you can find, and also that there is we're talking about the model, but there's a free version of it that has meditations in it that when you sign up, you can get in there and try it out, and there's value there right away. And then you can pay for a better version, right, with more stuff. And so, I think that there's a lot of apps out there that have different models. What made you want to go with that model specifically for the app? Did you just find that was the best way, or did you have to kind of stumble into that to figure out that was the best way?
No, I think I was always clear on that. I mean, look, if we go back to the summit idea, right? It was like, can I serve people for free? I think right now there's probably about 40 free tapping meditations in the app, and then you can sign up for, a yearly, which is at varying price points, but under $100. And, that gets you at this point 750 plus tapping meditations that we just keep adding to the library. 40 free is probably too many if we're trying to maximize revenue, and we see that because I've seen, I'm not going to name names, but I've seen other players in the space and, meditation apps. And I see that you can see so clearly when they either raise money or someone else is in charge and like, oh yeah, the free is like 2, it's like, no, we are locking this thing down because we have to maximize revenue. That just did not feel good to me. Even if you told me, hey, you get to make, if you only had 2, you get to make 20% more revenue right now. It's like, okay, but people can't, that's not a good experience too. Like, I'm not willing to do that for all the people, again, who can't afford it. So we do 40. It feels very generous. And there's, we also do free challenges all the time. So going back to the idea of like, I can make a great living, support my family, pay all the employees, pay the developers, pay the streaming. I mean, all the expenses that come, and especially with an app, because every piece of software is like $50,000 a year just to get in the door. So can I do all these things while still serving people who, can't afford it?
I appreciated that it was one of those apps that I could try before I buy. A lot of those apps that you download or apps, they say like, well, it's going to start charging you in 3 days even if you try it, right? Or something like that. And it was nice to be able to actually have access to try it out and do it without that financial like obligation that's going to automatically start charging. Because that's not I've never enjoyed that experience as an app user, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would love to get into some of the lessons learned around some of these things, because you've worked with a lot of experts, and you obviously have brought a lot of experts to summits through the many, many years, and also, through your app as well. You've got different people doing meditations like that, like Tony Robbins. How do you attract experts is, I think, an interesting question maybe for people who are newer to business and, maybe don't have all the experience and authority. And I mean, you started that way too, making your own movie, right? Yeah. How did you go from that point of just being like gung-ho, the secret is going to work out, to actually getting someone like a Tony Robbins on your app?
if I go back to, probably the hardest part of everything we've done, 2007, start the movie. It's easy to buy stuff on a credit card, but then it's like, well, what are you going to do now? We were sending emails, we were writing letters, and, we were young. I mean, I was 29 at the time. My sister's 7 years younger, so she's 22. Like, we are just kids, and we were passionate, and we would write a letter or send an email and be like, here's what we're doing. Love you. And actually love the person, right? It was like, yes, we know you. We know your work. We understand what you're doing and what you say. And here's what we're trying to do. It's probably a little harder now in terms of movies because more people do them, but then they were still kind of hot. So it's like, oh, you're making a movie? Great. Like, they didn't know. We had no idea what we were doing. So we got in the door there. When it came to, I think Tony's a really interesting story because, I have been a huge fan. I mean, clearly I went to a UPW in 2002 was my first one. In the fall of 2002, New York, New Jersey. It's like when they say New York, but it's actually in Newark, one of those. I remember walking down the street and seeing a Learning Annex poster with his face on it. My mom had bought his tapes from, QVC or an infomercial or something growing up. So I had exposure to him and I was like, I'm going. I just went by myself. It was like cross the river. I was living in New York City, went by myself and like, all right, here I am dancing.
No idea what you were walking in.
No idea. And I was all in, I did Life Mastery in Fiji, and then I did Date with Destiny, and I did Wealth Mastery, and then I crewed Life Mastery, and I crewed UPW. It's like, and I brought, my friends and family. Like I went with my family down to Miami to a UPW, and again, talk about being broke. Like we all shared a room. Like we were sleeping on the floor of hotels because I was like, these tickets aren't cheap, and this is the budget we have. And like, I guess we'll just all sleep in one room, like, here we go. So I was, all in. And then I mentioned that leadership conference that Tony did a little demonstration. So he kicked me off into it. Full circle 2012, under tragic and sad circumstances. I live in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, Newtown, Connecticut, which is the site of the Sandy Hook school shooting. So 10 minutes from where we're talking right now is where all these beautiful kids and teachers were murdered, and just a horrible, horrible day. When that day happened, it was shocking to the world, extra shocking when it's 10 minutes away. And you're like, this is a nice, normal, quaint Connecticut town, and this horrible thing happened. I knew that we had a tool to help in some way, right? Tapping even before then had been used in Rwanda with victims of the genocide there. We had done charity and humanitarian work around the world, just supporting what people were doing out there. So I knew that we could help in some way. It's a really difficult situation when you have a million people trying to help, and then you have trauma, and just, it's a mess, right? As you can imagine. We started the Tapping Solution Foundation, probably 3 days after that happened, to have a vehicle to receive donations to support the work. We donated money to start it, and we brought in Dr. Lori Layden, who had worked in Rwanda. We had supported her work to be on the ground, and she was on the ground, supported by the foundation and people around the world for several years afterwards. And we got to work with, I got to work with Scarlett Lewis, who lost her son Jesse, and just a week after it happened, and even less, I was in her house, and we were tapping on the anger and the trauma, and just trying to bring her body a little bit of peace, trying to, you're not solving this situation. You're not making it go away, but, can I breathe a little better? Can I sleep a little better? Can I take care of myself? And, that is the work we did for years. And we were committed to that work, doing it quietly and doing it as should be done, right? Just helping people where we could. About a year or two afterwards, Tony came into town to speak to some of the survivors, and he actually flew in survivors from other shootings, right? So they could connect. And Scarlett said, I know you love Tony. Do you want to come with me as my guest? So we were in this little room, little Marriott in Danbury, and these amazing people sharing their stories and saying who they are, and came around to me, and I said, I'm Nick with the Tapping Solution, and I've been working with Scarlett, and here's what we do. And Tony was like, tapping? Like, I love tapping. You're here doing tapping? Like, you're doing this? So we connected instantly, and became friends. He supported the work here. I supported him with his books, and, he found out quickly that we had built a community because I was the #1 affiliate for one of his first books, beating out, by the way, Frank Kern. And I got a nice email from Frank saying, man, you're doing something right, because you just beat me out in this book launch. So Tony and I became friends. And, back to your original question, we're like, well, that's a function of just like doing the work. Like, I wasn't chasing Tony, it was a dream come true to get to know him, but it wasn't like I was just doing the right thing. No other way to put it. And we connected because we cared about these things. And then when the app came along and asked him to do some meditations, and he said, I'd love to support this. And like I said, he donates his percentage to Feeding America. We match that with another 3%. So, 5% of all app sales at all times of all profits go to Feeding America. Be passionate, show up, be honest about what you're doing, do it for the right reason, put your head down and help when you can. You're going to attract these experts.
And play the long game too.
100%. Play the long game. It's like, man, when the movie first came out, you always just like, Oprah had The Secret on. So you just like dream of being on Oprah and all these things. And rarely happens that way. It's great when it does for people, but it's also not the way to build a business, So if we had been on Oprah that first year, I don't know if it would have been good for us either, right? Like, sometimes we wish these things, we want these things to happen. Oh, if only this thing happened and only that thing happened. And even now, we have celebrities who use the app and post about it and share about it. But there's a difference between all that public facing stuff and like building a good business. And there's something I'm proud of, is that we've been profitable every year, and we have a great team who we pay well, and like we built a good business, and we're not out there chasing, the social media followers, or, oh my gosh, if only this person talked about tapping, all will be solved,
And you work with your 2 siblings, and you all get along from what I can see. And I actually haven't met Jessica. I've only met you and Alex.
We all get along, and you know what? People are always shocked about us working together and everything. I am not doing them any favors by working with them, right? Like, I would hire both of them in a heartbeat. And that is just the truth. Jessica is an unbelievable interviewer. Like, she is so good. And if you watch a Tapping World Summit interview, you just see, like, she's been good from the start, and she's gotten even better. When you hear someone going off on a tangent or not explaining something clearly, she beautifully just like pulls it back and without being annoying, right? Which can be like a challenge as a host. Like, so what I'm hearing you say is, did I get that right? Just like, she brings out the best in those experts, which is why people keep coming back too, right? It's like, I've been on podcasts that are just like, here I am doing the same thing, this, that, and the other. And I've been on podcasts where it's like, well, they gave me the platform. They asked me the right questions. They brought out the best in me. And like, those are the places that you want to go, because you're like, this was great. This was different. This was interesting, engaging. Alex is an unbelievable marketer, detail-oriented operations guy, an expert himself. He does great tapping meditations and coaches people. And so they both bring so much to the table that I just cannot imagine doing it without them.
So Nick, I just want to share like the experience that I had in the last few months. So going back, we were together in December in New York City at the Hay House Authors Mastermind. So we're both Hay House authors. We're both good friends of Reed Tracy. And we're just hanging out. So it was a great mastermind. It was a couple days long. After it was over, we were just hanging out, having dinner, I think it was. And I don't know how it came up, but, and this is a big admission for me, for all those listeners, is I just told you that I was feeling a lot of stress in my body. I think a lot of people look at me and what I put out in the world, and I always seem so relaxed and so comfortable and whatever. But the reality is I'd gone through a launch. It was a launch that went really well, but it had some really trying moments. And I built up this stress response in my body, specifically in my jaw and my stomach. Yeah. And we're just sitting around having a very real conversation about what's going on in our lives. And I mentioned that. And I mentioned it was actually irritated me because I wasn't feeling stress in any way, but my body was, I think what I said to you is like, I feel like my body forgot how to relax. Even though I was relaxed I was sleeping fine, everything, wasn't walking around feeling stressed except for those points in my body. And you said to me, well, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was something along the lines, well, I might be able to help you with that.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I was like, oh, that's right. That's right. And I'd been exposed to both tapping, EFT, and also your work. And just very slightly, I'd seen you actually get on stage and lead a big audience through a tapping. And I thought it was super cool. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm always up for everything. So we ended up a few weeks later, got on a FaceTime, and I'm still like in this stress response. I've still got pain in my jaw. I've still got pain in my stomach for no good reason, really making me, very irritated because I've got the meditation practice. I've got the yoga practice. I've got all the things. I do think I'm a relaxed person. I have a relaxed life in general, but so we get on FaceTime, and I don't know, in 15 minutes, you walked me through. And I can't remember what number I had at the beginning. And, because you asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at right now? And I don't know, I'm going to guess I was about a 7 or something. And we went, and within about 15 minutes, you got me down to probably a 3, which is pretty remarkable after being in that stress response for weeks and weeks. Yeah. And so then I got the app. And I told you right before we started recording, I basically, since I think it was somewhere in December, I got it. And I literally have only missed one day. And that was when I was on a wilderness river trip, and, I had no internet or anything. And, but I've done it every single day since. This is the amazing thing about it is, there's a lot of different meditations. There's different lengths. The ones I do are the super short ones that are 4 minutes or less. So I'm spending about 4 minutes every morning when I first get out of bed, wake up, look forward to it, do my meditation, and then do the tapping meditation. And this is the crazy thing is what I've noticed is that I am hesitant to say this in public, but what I've noticed is my wife is a lot happier. She has become, she just is showing up happier. And it's because I'm showing up happier and I'm showing up with more gratitude. At least that's my story. That's the story. And I haven't even told her this. She does know I'm tapping, but it's just, to me, it's my life is just happier and the people around me are happier because I'm spending 3.5 or 4 minutes a day tapping.
It's unbelievable. I'm going to cut that as an ad. We're going to start running it in the next hour. My wife is happier, right? What else? We struggle to reach men, right? Women tend to default more to this kind of thing. So here we go. Now we got the angle. My wife is happier.
See that in one sense, because it's sort of a good headline. It's catchy because obviously I'm happier.
Yes, of
and
course.
when I'm happier and I'm showing up with gratitude and I'm being more kind to her. And, a lot of you don't know, I've been married for decades to my wife. And we've got a very happy family. We've got 2 happy kids. It's all super functional, but yeah, I'm happier, more grateful. And it's just ridiculous to me that in 3.5 or 4 minutes a day, it's just the minimum dose is just, how can it be? It's just, but I'm willing to just keep on doing it. I'm not going to miss a day.
No, that's so beautiful. You said a couple things that I want to call out to people. One, my body forgot how to relax, right? That is profound. And it's something that a lot of people deal with. So people deal with either that or they deal with, I don't even know that I'm not relaxed. I don't even know that I'm stressed. I don't even know that I'm anxious. I don't even know that I'm angry because they have been doing it for so long that it's just the way they feel, right? What happens so often with tapping, we'll hear people do one tapping round and just start crying. And it's well, what was that? It was just it's unlocking something in the body where it's finally feeling safe to relax. It's finally breathing. It's finally opening up to being oh my gosh, I can't believe I felt this way. most people don't have the awareness of what you said, like, wait, why is my jaw? And, a lot of times with tapping, we will focus on the body because it's like it gives us these messages that we tend to ignore. Like, why am I walking around with this tight jaw? Like, why is my stomach bothering me? What people will usually do is like, I guess I have stomach problems. I guess I this, that, and the other. And sure, that can be the case sometimes, but a lot of times, man, the stress that we hold on to, the anxiety we hold on to, and the things that we are unaware of. I think one of the reasons why we struggle, we have plenty of men using the app, so I'm not saying that they don't, but I think part of the reason why we have more women using the app is they tend to be more emotionally aware, right? So they tend to know when they're anxious. They tend to know when they're angry, and men are just like, what? Yeah, I am angry, but I don't know. It's just who I am, just the way it is, but having that awareness, oh, my body forgot how to relax, and then what if I could do something about it? And I still find it unbelievable that tapping on these parts of your body for 3 to 4 minutes is going to create that profound a change. I'm still shocked that John had 30 years of back pain and woke up pain-free from doing this thing. Like, that is unbelievable. And he wasn't the only one. We had Jody with fibromyalgia, pain-free. Patricia, who had fractured a vertebrae in her back, and she had this big metal plates and screws and all these things in her back. And you go, my sister would joke, there's no way it's going to work for her. Like, she has metal. It's not like a mental thing, right? Like, she's not stressed. She's got metal plates and screws. Like, this is why she's in pain. And I use the big brother veto, and I'm like, I'm in charge of this thing. Patricia's coming. I have a feeling. And sure enough, she woke up pain-free. And she would say, you can hear her say it in the movie, she's like, I could feel this battery pack in my back. Like, I had the sensation of what was in there, and that sensation is gone, which is like, what on earth is going on here, right? Where we can shift that profoundly. And for you, 3.5, 4 minutes, I love the subtleties of you talking about being happier and your wife being happier is you were already in a great place, but we got long, busy days, and it's easy to be short with someone, or it's easy to just be distracted and frazzled, and it's easy to not bring our best selves to a relationship. And you're showing up just by unlocking that a little bit, every day. You're showing up as a different person. It's affecting your life, and that's what I see, and it's possible for everyone. The
latest hack that I just started using the last few days is, so I have a daily meditation practice that goes back, I don't know, probably about 23 years, maybe 24 years. And what I found is I do, because you said there was 450 different.
750 now. Yeah.
There's also a search function too.
Exactly. The search functions, there's categories. Yeah. Search for what you need. It's probably in there.
So I started doing a very short tapping on presence to bring myself present before I do my meditation. So I do 3 minutes of tapping for presence, and then I go into my meditation. I've been having just wonderful meditations.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's so much deeper, so much faster, right? We actually have a tapping into meditation one.
Oh.
So it is for that reason exactly. So next time you go in, search tapping into meditation, because people really find that. It's it gets rid of that, sometimes for people it could be 10 minutes of jumble or 20 minutes of just mind racing and all these things, and then the last 2 minutes you finally feel like you're there, and it was man, that took a long time to get there. So this is a way to speed up getting there.
Right. So that was my for everyone listening, that was my commercial for the app. I am not compensated in any way. I'm not an affiliate. I have no skin in the game other than I want the app to continue because it's made a profound impact on my life in the last 3 months.
That's amazing. It brings joy to me. And that's one of the fun things about the app. I don't hear all the stories all the time, but when it's oh, there it is. That person's using it. It's working,
So Nick, I don't know if this could work, but I was wondering if you could lead us all through a tapping.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And for people listening, I'll describe the points. So don't worry. If you can watch on video, that's always great. But yeah, let's go through it. So let's start by if it's safe to do so, if you're not in the car. Don't do this if you're in the car. You need both hands on the steering wheel, so save it for later. But if it's safe to do so, just close your eyes and take a gentle breath in. And let it go. And just start by tuning into how you feel we talked a little bit about the body, and Jeff mentioned, the tightness in his jaw and stomach, and see if there's any of that for you. Do you have tension in your neck or shoulders? Do you have any pain? Just notice how your body feels. And we're just going to use that as a checkpoint so we can look back later and see if something has changed there. And with tapping, we're always looking to, work on something, right? So like, what's the thing? I mentioned pain, and we just tuned into some pain. So if you have pain in your body, great opportunity to see if we can move it. And then if you're feeling anxious, or you're angry about something, or you're overwhelmed, if you've got some fear about something going on, just tune in and pick one thing that you say to yourself, you know what, it'd be nice to move on from this. It'd be nice to let this go. And then give it a number of intensity in a scale of 0 to 10. So if you're feeling super anxious right now, that's a 10. And if you're calm and relaxed, it's a 0. So we have our issue that we're working on. We have our number. And now we'll do some tapping. You can gently open your eyes. We start by tapping on the side of the hand. And you take 4 fingers of one hand and tap on the outside of the other hand. It's below that pinky, right in that fleshy part of your hand, and just tapping gently. And then repeat after me, either in your mind or out loud. If you're by yourself, say it out loud. If you're somewhere in public and embarrassed, great, just say it to yourself. Not a problem. And I'm going to use very general language here because I don't know what it is that you're working on, if you're anxious or angry or overwhelmed, but it's going to work just great. So tapping on the side of the hand, say, even though I'm stressed, I choose to relax and feel safe now. And we're going to continue tapping on the side of the hand. Even though I have this stress in my body about this issue, it's safe to let it go. And one more time, still on the side of the hand. Even though I'm holding on to this issue, I imagine letting it go now. Now we'll tap through the points. The first point is the inside of the eyebrow, where the hair ends and it meets the nose. You're going to take 2 fingers of one hand, the other hand, or both hands. The meridians run down both sides of the body. And you're just tapping gently, whatever speed feels good to you, making enough pressure that you're sort of knocking on those bones. And as you tap, just tune into this thing that you're working on. So if you're anxious, just notice that anxiety. If you're angry, think to yourself, what am I angry about? Now moving to the side of the eye. It's not at the temple. It's right next to the eye on the bone. Again, one side or both sides. Tapping gently. And we're taking this time. We're actually looking to tune into these negative emotions, the truth of what we're feeling, in order to send that calming signal and let it go. Under the eye. So just think about that now. Notice the pain in your body, the fear, the stress, the overwhelm, whatever's going on, just be present to it now. Under the nose, under the mouth, above the chin, below the lip, and that little crease there. Tune back into that issue. What's going on? What's it about? Can you let it go? For the collarbone point, just feel for the 2 little bones of the collarbone and just go right below it, all 10 fingers of both hands. If you're just figuring it out, getting it distracted, that's okay. Bring your mind back to that thing. What's going on? What are you stressed about? What are you anxious about? What do you want to let go? Now, underneath the arm, 3 inches underneath the armpit, tapping gently. Breathing gently. And the last point at the top of the head. Excuse me. Tapping gently. Breathing gently. And now you can stop tapping. Take a breath in. and let it go. So now that was just one quick round. And then we tune back in. We go, okay, that 7 was a 6 or a 5. Like, what moved? What happened there? What came up? I was working on anxiety, and then I remembered something else, or then I got angry about something. I was working on back pain, and then I had a memory of something that happened 5 years ago. And the process is this beautiful unfolding. Like, okay, then we go again. Or we go, great, we're at a good place here, and we can get on with our days.
Super cool. Thank you for taking us through that.
I just noticed I owe a lot of attention to my jaw. And so I actually just noticed that my jaw relaxed a bunch during that process, which is where I was focusing most of my attention.
No, that's great. And, it's like, it's hard to be like, hey, relax your jaw. I mean, certainly if you just stop and you can be like, okay, let me try to loosen this, that, and the other. But there's something else that happens where it just unlocks.
Well, so much of our tension in our body is not necessarily from exertion; it's from emotion, right? Yeah. And I learned that in theater school, which was where I got in tune with my body a lot.
Yes.
Was through, the yoga practices and the different things that they would do in our movement class to help us unlock our voice, and our vocal range. And there's so much, like, from your jaw to your face to your shoulders to your chest, like all the different parts of our body. And there would be moments within our class where we would be, say, releasing something, and people would have emotional releases at that very moment. And like you said, they'd be, we'd be doing a massage, or we'd be doing an exercise of some sort with vibrations, and people would suddenly tear up, or they would have emotional responses to those moments. And, the body really does hold on to things from whatever it was or is in your life, and to allow that to release in those moments. This is, I guess, just a very direct way to address those things and create that freedom.
Yeah, it's a direct way. It's also just really empowering, right? Because you do it by yourself. There's amazing practitioners and psychologists and psychiatrists who bring it into their practice. And there's a time and a place for that, especially when you're doing trauma work, deeper, more complicated things. But there's also a reason why, psychologists and psychiatrists recommend the app to all their patients, because they can be like, hey, I'm talking to you once a week and we're going through this stuff. But then the rest of the time you have this tool that you can use.
So I've heard tapping can be great for anxiety and pain relief and, trauma. Like, are there other things that maybe I wouldn't think of that could be good, that I should check this out?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the physical stuff is pretty crazy. Like, we have an IBS, irritable bowel syndrome series, so much stomach stuff, like, emotion, stress plays such a big role. And even, I think people really struggle with the physical stuff when there's a diagnosis, right? Like, hey, I have Crohn's and I have all this inflammation and this, that, and the other. And that's why I take the white pill and that makes it better, or do this or that, the other. And I'm not saying there's also a time and a place for that. And that's great. And can you help your healing? Can you support the experience by reducing the stress? Like, there's not a doctor that will argue with stress plays a role in healing of everything. Doesn't matter what, it's great for, we have cancer patients who are going through chemotherapy and very nauseous, and like, the tapping helps with the nausea in beautiful ways. So there's all the physical stuff, and then, the emotional landscape. I mean, I personally use it oftentimes for, like, we have a motivate me to work and motivate me to have a productive day. It's like the difference between 5 minutes of tapping before work and like then getting at the computer to then just diving in is night and day. Just the clarity that happens. And, we didn't talk too much about it. I mentioned how we send a calming signal to the amygdala in the brain when we do this. But if we think about, just think about work, right? Like, you got a launch going on, and it's your first one or it's your 100th one, but there's still stressors that come with it. And like, you're dealing with things. When we are stressed, the blood flows away from our brain into our arms and legs, right? It's a fight, flight, or freeze response. We're being chased by a lion or a tiger or a bear. Like, and we feel it. And, imagine, Jeff, during your last launch, and you've got some stressful things going on. So there you are, you're running, right? You're being chased, and I come up next to you and I say, Jeff, what's the solution for this? Like, what are we going to do? What are the next steps? And you go, well, first off, I got to deal with the bear behind me. I got to deal, my body is in this state of not thinking clearly. And we all know this. Like, we all know we don't think clearly, we don't make good decisions when we're stressed. When in the history of man has someone said, well, I was in the middle of the most stressful time of my life and this, that, and the other, and I wasn't thinking clearly, and, I was overwhelmed. And then I came up with this idea. Like, no. I was taking a shower. I was going for a walk. I was taking a bath. I was relaxing, right? We're in these relaxed states. I had the idea for the documentary film about the tapping solution when I was doing a fast. I was in Arizona. It was like day 5 of a fast. Like, you're never feeling better than day 2 or 3. No good. But day 5, I'm just like flying. And it's like my body is in this relaxed state. And then I have that energy and the juice and the creativity. So, we tend to, as a culture, be like, hustle culture, gotta go, gotta push, gotta this, gotta that. And doesn't mean don't work hard, but you are not going to make good decisions or come up with good ideas if you're stressed. Period. End of story. Your biochemistry doesn't support that happening, right? So this isn't like a woo-woo thing out there. Like, if you're stressed, if you're sleep deprived, like, you're not coming up with good ideas. You're not making good decisions. So how do we get ourselves to that place where we can make good decisions and have good ideas?
Yeah, I think of it, when you speak about like IBS or people dealing with fibromyalgia, people dealing with like really challenging physical things. But my experience, and so much of what I'm after, is like, I'm looking for a performance edge, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
To show up in every area of my life as a better human. And when you're sleeping better, when you're gonna show up in all areas of your life better. You're gonna, and especially work. I mean, we're talking to a lot of entrepreneurs. If you can reduce your stress and you can show up with more focus and more presence and better rested in every area of your business, then you are going to win.
100%. And it's as simple as, you could go, you've got a business challenge in front of you, and you say, whatever it is, even though my social media following isn't growing, right? Like, that's the thing that you are focused on and you're like stressed. Even though my social media following isn't growing, I choose to relax now. It's not growing. I don't know what's happening. My reels were going so viral before, now they're not, right? Like, all this stuff that we're talking and thinking about anyway. Do that 3 times through, and I guarantee you're going to go, oh, you know what? I was doing this thing before, and maybe that's the difference. Like, you're going to get this clarity, even just as a brainstorming session. Like, your mind is going to unlock things that are going to just shock you. Like, oh, there it is. There's the answer. Whenever I work, we have a financial program, like a financial success and personal fulfillment program. And people are like, what do you mean? You like tap on, then you get more money, like how does that work? And it's because we are unlocking the creativity, unlocking the decision-making, unlocking. And for some people, entrepreneurs, starting companies, it's all that stressors. For other people, it's like, they're not looking at the bills. They're stuffing them in a drawer because they're just so overwhelmed by it. And when we can reduce that stress, it's like, okay, now I have the energy to handle this.
Nick, this has been so great. I always love talking to you. The other day I was talking to Chris a little bit, and I was trying to explain to him what I thought this interview would be, a little about tapping, and I was having a hard time expressing it, but I knew it was going to be awesome. So you've been on this, just one last question. So yep. 2003, you jump into a Tony Robbins event and you get exposed to tapping. And here we are more than 20 years later. This became something that's transformed your life, that's transformed your family's life, your siblings' life, that you've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people go through your summits. You've helped in an incredibly profound way in so many areas of people's lives. And all along the way, you grew up this business and you created a great life for yourself. What looking back, what is this journey? How does that feel? How does this journey feel for you?
Oh man, it feels good. It get me emotional. It feels amazing. I'm blessed. I've done my part. I've showed up, but my gosh, the people, like even my siblings, I couldn't do it without them. I beyond blessed every single day. And I'm not done, like this is to me, just getting started and just continuing to make that impact and seeing it. We get it. I log into the back end of the app every day to see the feedback, and then we have groups and all these places, and I have to work hard to not just skip over them because they're really special. You'll see things as profound as, you saved my life tonight. Like I was thinking of, doing something, to just someone feeling better, and it's been in my DNA from the start to just help people, as a peer counselor in high school, and just trying to be there for people. And I think that dedication and that effort has brought me incredible blessings. So yeah, beyond grateful.
Should we do a taco break here and then do final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we could. We'll see if it fits. It doesn't feel like it fits. It doesn't feel like it would fit.
Yeah, after the profound crying, we talk tacos. I love tacos. So
The thing is, I like lighting it up, but these are fun questions that we do rapid fire with our guests, and they are something that I think people have a little fun with. But
Great.
If we'll start off with just the simple and easy ones, and then we'll get to some of the more fun ones. But the first one here is all right, are you a hard shell or a soft shell?
Oh gosh, that is such a tough decision. I could. And when I think of soft shell, I go back to Taco Bell, right? Because I haven't had Taco Bell in a long time. I gave up fast food a long time ago, but man, did I like those Taco Bell soft shells. So I feel now probably hard shell, only because I can't do the Taco Bell soft shell.
Can I tell you, you're the first guest we've had that said hard shell.
Really? Everyone's a soft shell guy?
Yeah. Well, I'm a hard shell guy. I like hard shells too. So I've been on that train for a long time. So I appreciate you showing up and being my hard shell.
The thing is now when I go soft shell, I'm like, am I having a burrito here? What are we doing?
That's awesome. All right. What about, do you want guacamole, or are you not going to do guacamole?
100%. I want guacamole before with chips, and then I want to put guacamole in, and I want to have guacamole as a dessert, with lots of onions and extra cilantro and some kick to it if it's available.
Do you want your tacos spicy, or are you into the more mild tacos?
No, definitely some spice, and too much can be okay. I just feel like I'm doing something good for my body, I'm cleansing, are you happy sweating right now? I don't know. I think it's good for me.
So if you could eat a taco at the World Cup for soccer or the Stanley Cup for hockey, which one would you choose?
Ooh, well, this will give you a little bit of a clue here.
Oh, nice.
So this picture that I'm holding up is my nephew, Enzo, and then my brother, sister, and I in the background. We were all born in Argentina, and I moved here when I was 8, and Argentina won the World Cup in 2022, and this is us celebrating and crying. We cried about as much then as I did when I was sharing my life's journey of 20 years. So, that's how meaningful soccer is. Now, that's a tough one too, because I love hockey, and I went to a Rangers game just a few weeks back, and that would be tricky, but yes, World Cup it is.
Yeah, I knew that one was coming. Yeah.
If you were going to if you had to choose between eating a taco prepared by Emeril Lagasse or Gordon Ramsay, who would you choose?
I don't know enough about their flavors, but Gordon seems to yell at people. So then I don't really want him to yell at me, where Emeril seems to be he'd be more fun. He'd be chucking stuff in and saying bam. So I'm going to go with the bam.
Bam. Yeah. This one's more kind of meta, but if you were to run a taco summit with some of the best and most influential taco people, what would you call that summit?
Well, it's the Taco World Summit. Boom. Done. It names itself, Why obfuscate it with some complicated language,
Yeah, I think the Taco World Summit could completely blow up.
Got a few good taco business ideas on this podcast.
Yeah. Listen, if you want to, you get all the world's best taco experts. You got to go video, right? Because I want to see what's happening, and you get the recipes with it. You get some preparation tips, but it's 10 days of nothing but tacos. I love it.
I love it too.
I actually don't know if it's been done in the recipe and kitchen space, but I could see it. I could see it going, you know.
One of our plats in our mastermind, she has done, she teaches knitting, and she's done what's called Knit Stars. And it's not purely a summit model, but it rhymes with it. It goes super high production. It's video. She sends out a video crew all around the world, gets these amazing folks that are knitting, doing just incredible work. And so it's been enormously successful for her. And she ended up, she wanted to try the model in a different place. And so she did barbecue stars, and it worked pretty darn well.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. You know, a lot of people do docuseries now, it's the same thing, right? There are some nuances. Sometimes they'll cut things together in different ways of, you'll have an episode on X with multiple experts, but same core concept. So yeah, Taco World Summit it is.
Thanks for the 2-minute taco break there. And I wanted to maybe just finish off with, a lot of our listeners are people who are looking to launch. Maybe they're on that cusp of making a decision to jump into entrepreneurship or to go after their first business. What advice would you give people who are at that stage?
There's a step in front of you in terms of action that is the next step. I remember speaking this is one of the first events I ever spoke at in 2010. And I was answering questions, and a lady stood up and she's like, you have your DVD here. Like, I want to make a CD with meditations or something. Can you tell me like where you got the DVD printed? Like, she wanted to know about like the packaging and what the company was and everything. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to answer some of those questions. So I said, so you've recorded the CD already? And she's like, no. Okay. So you've written the thing? No. So I kept going back steps, and she just had the idea to make this meditation CD, which is great, but don't ask me about how to produce it, because you're going to figure that out when it's time to produce it. And I see time and again, people get stuck on that. They look 18 steps ahead and they go, oh, I don't know, that step is going to be hard, and they run the whole thing in their mind about everything. Like, yeah, have a plan, put things out, but most importantly, take the next step. I've never seen a 5-year plan, at least in our businesses, that, works or is even, up to what was expected. Don't worry about the production. Don't worry about making the CD. Just get started on the step in front of you. Because it's also usually easy to answer. Like, what's the next thing you would do? Oh, well, in that case, I would write out the script for the CD. Great. Go do that. Figure out the rest later. And especially in this day and age, between Google and ChatGPT, just go talk to ChatGPT and ask it how to do these things, and you're going to get an answer. So like, all of that is solved. You just got to take the steps. And then the other one is, I wasn't faced with this when I started, Jeff. I know you weren't either. There's so many channels now. There's so many opportunities. There's so many ideas. There's so many influencers and affiliate models and TikTok and YouTube and like places to be, that it is really easy to get completely overwhelmed, to think that when you launch something, you gotta, think about a website. It's like, I launched a website and then I need the Instagram channel and the Twitter handle and the TikTok thing and then this, that, and the other. It's like, just pick a place where you want to spend some time. If you want to run ads in the place that you understand. If you want to post content in the place where you go. Like, don't go on YouTube if you don't use it. Like, if you're an Instagram person, you spend all day scrolling Instagram, post on Instagram. If you're on Facebook, post on Facebook. And just like, be where you're comfortable with, or don't do any of those things, or build a summit or build a product. It's like, if you've got expertise to share, like, don't worry about your social media plan. Get that expertise out in the world. Write the book, like, do the thing that you are qualified to do, and don't get distracted by the shiny objects. I think we all still struggle with it. They're everywhere, and they will absolutely crush you, because then you just won't have done anything because you're too worried about posting on Instagram, and, you haven't built an email list, or you haven't done, the basics of the launch.
Absolutely. I'm taking notes. I love it. That example of someone worrying about how they're going to produce their DVD or CD when they haven't even begun. It It just happens everywhere. It's like I can't, like, I want to build a home. I can't start building a home because I got to decide what color the hinges on the front door are going to be. It's like, no, get some plans done, dig the foundation.
Make the phone call to the architect, right? Or to the builder or whatever it is. There's always, and that's the thing, when you ask people, if you ask yourself that question, you'll get the answer right away. Like, well, what is the next step in this thing? Oh, well, it's to do this. Great. Go do that.
Well, Nick, this has been so great to have you on here and chatting and everything. Where can people find more about what you're doing and more about the tapping solution?
Yeah, thank you. So the main website is just thetappingsolution.com. So you can see all sorts of things there. And then we talked about the app a couple times. If you just go to the App Store and you search the tapping solution, it'll pop right up there. Download for free, have an experience, give it a shot. See how it works for you. I mean, I'm asking for maybe 5 minutes, right, to do one of those meditations. Like, find a micro boost, find a instant boost, and you'll know if something's happening for you, and chances are it is, and take it from there.
Well, Launch family, thanks again for listening to today's episode, and we hope this conversation inspires you to dare to launch.